Well, it's kind of, you know, before Christ, you know, I guess it was just typical person. I mean, really kind of the same story that most people have, broken home growing up and got into kind of the wrong scene and several years of drug abuse, started out, just partying with your friends and that type of thing. But, I realize now that in that, you're trying to fulfill a gap in your life, with the things the world has to offer, whether it be a relationship or, drugs or drinking or whatever. You're trying to fill an emptiness, and everybody's doing that sort of thing. So you think, well, that's what I need to do to fit in and be part of the crowd, But the reality is, of course, is all that just leads to destruction, of your life. And it's not much living really when your goal is the next fix. Being addicted to crystal meth, and running around 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's all you're really looking for is just, where can I go and get some more drugs, And from Hot Springs originally, so we moved up here because, well, we did some moving around, trying to escape the drug scene. And we thought, well, we could move to. I lived in Georgia for a while. I thought, well, if I move there, I really don't know anybody, and it would be easier for me to, get away from that stuff. The reality was, it was much easier to find there at that time. This is, 16, 17, 18 years ago. I don't really remember, but so that didn't work out well. So I lived there for about a year, and we moved back. And one day, my wife came home, and her mother-in-law had ran into a man, and he was talking about some very odd things in Christianity, as far as such like going to church on Saturday and not doing Christmas, and Easter and all these things as being wrong. And of course, I was never really a Christian, but my friends growing up were Baptists, and they would take me to church a time or two, and so it was very strange to me. And the reality of it was I really didn't care at that point. I thought, well, that's good, just some Christian wacko guy with strange beliefs, So I was working a job, and I worked a night shift, and wasn't doing drugs anymore because, I was an addict, and so, and I didn't understand at the time, but I just lost the appeal, and I didn't go to rehab, I didn't do any of those things. It just kind of faded out of my life, and I started working all the time, and I had a good job, and that's kind of became my goal, was to work and provide. I was married and everything, and so that's kind of the way it went, my new focus. But I worked at night, and in my job, I was by myself quite a bit because I ran a forklift, so I was always out in the yard. And at night, sometimes things tend to be a little slower paced, so I had a lot of time to think about. So I started thinking about, some of the things that guy was telling us, told my mother-in-law, which got back to me. And I thought, it really is, maybe there is more to life than just, making a good living and doing your, worldly responsibilities, providing for your family and all that. I mean, because my viewpoint on God is, there probably is a God, or maybe there isn't, or maybe these scientists really do know what they're talking about. Maybe they, these guys are supposed to be the smartest people in the world, surely they've got something figured out, and so I thought, well, if there is, then great. If not, then it doesn't matter to me. But as time drug on, I started thinking about, why are we here? What is life really about? It's got to be more than just being born and growing old and dying. I mean, it's got to be more to the picture than just existence, And I didn't know, but things were starting to weigh on me. Things were starting to convict my heart, and so my wife and I, we talked about it some more, and then we talked with this gentleman a few more times, and he didn't really have any place to have a service either, so we kind of would hang out with him on Saturdays, and just read the Bible, talk about God, listen to some radio programs and that sort of thing, and that worked all right for a while. But this hunger inside, to know more and to understand who God really was, And I'm not saying that I was, totally committed, or I think it was more of a period of trying to figure out, what all this was really about, what was really going on. But I knew I wanted to know more. I wanted to figure out what was, is there something I needed to do to, save myself, or what is this heaven? What is hell, about? What's going on, So, so we started reading the Word and the Bible and everything, and, the things that I was doing, like I said, I go to church on Saturday, the Sabbath, and I worked every Saturday, and it got to where it was just tearing my heart apart, because I knew that I was being convicted that God's commandments matter, and they're a platform for how to live your life and how to please Him, and so I ended up quitting that job because I just couldn't do that anymore. And I took a job for way less pay, but God provided, and He always has. So that was it was a tough obstacle for me, because like I said before all that, I never held down a job. I never really liked working anywhere. Drugs was my life, and doing what I wanted to do. And then I really did enjoy that job a lot, and so it was it was hard for me to quit, but not so hard as when I knew I was wrong, So I took another job. So eventually, the guy, he moved on, and we were doing things on our own on Saturday and everything, and needed a body, And I always make the joke about moving to Russellville, the only place in the state where the nuclear power plant is, But looking back, it's always, you see how God has moved in your life, and how sometimes you're just going along with the ride, and you don't see the workings in the background necessarily. I think of, well, how did I just get off of drugs without having to go to a rehab, or how did I do all these things, But I realized that God, I could never have answered a call to God if all those obstacles were still in the way. And for me, it's just, you have to ask yourself, what do you want as a Christian? What do you where do you want to? So many people do so many different things in the name of God and with God, and I read the Word, and I try to approach it as, it's what the Word says, that Jesus is that great pearl, and if there's anything that would come before Him in my life, then if I can easily place something else instead of Him, then He's not on the throne, So I try to look at it that way, and focus and overcome those obstacles in life, let Him guide me through those things, because we all have battles, we all have things that plague us in the flesh, and the battles we have in the spirit. But if we're faithful, He's always been faithful to me. When I was convicted about the Ten Commandments and keeping, giving up Christmas and all those things and Easter and all that stuff, I saw that we're in history that it wasn't really a biblical teaching, and I was introduced into the holy days and all and the appointed times of God, and so for me it wasn't hard to give those things up. But the Ten Commandments, when I knew that I have to obey God. I mean, obedience shows God that we love Him and keeping His commandments. And I knew that, if I chose the world over what I knew was a conviction, what I knew in my heart was right, I knew that, if I wasn't going to make a commitment to doing what I thought God wanted me to do, then there's no point in being committed to any of it, really. And just the moves of God, He started, making Himself more knowable. When the Word says, "Seek and you shall find," and that's certainly true. We started looking into His Word, and one testimony I have of very early on is people may think I'm crazy, but that's fine, because I know I heard His voice, an audible voice. It was a warning that my wife was, still kind of hanging on to the flesh, some, and in a particular battle, and just telling me, and I had never heard anything like that before. And the first time He said anything, to me, I simply thought that, someone was in my house, a physical man, because it was a male's voice, and so I was kind of looking around, because I was like, well, who is that? Because I was getting ready to go to work, and then He repeated it, but then I knew exactly, who it was, because He takes the doubt. He has a way of doing that, and letting himself be known of who He is. But and like I said earlier, we can do so many different things with God, but and so many people say they know Him and do, but the fruits are not there, showing that they really care. And no one's perfect. I mean, I can certainly relate to the battle with the flesh and the things. The Word says that this body is dead, and that we're to die daily and to live as He lived, as Jesus lived, and that's the struggle. But in the end, the reward of being as He is and with Him and being considered faithful, outweighs all those things.